am a social justice writer and editor, editorial leader, all that good stuff. And I am from New York. And today's session is about portfolios. And with us today, we have two absolutely fabulous people who I love working with. And they are Laurie P., who is an abolitionist editor and indexer. And we have Olivia M. Gonzalez, who is a branding extraordinaire. May I call you OMG?
Of course you may.
Thank you. So I am going to kick it off to Laurie for a brief introduction, and then to OMG, and then we'll get started.
Hi, my name is Laurie Prendergast. Often people call me Laurie P. I've been an editor, a copy editor, and a grant writer for a little over 35 years. I more recently came to indexing. I started in 1999. Um, and I do a lot of things in the world. I do consider myself an abolitionist editor because I work on behalf of freedom and liberation for all people. And that's been something key in my organizing work, in my teaching work. I was a sixth grade teacher for a long time. I worked as an artist. I continue to work as an artist. And my work really tries to help people think and see and understand possibilities for change. So that's enough about me, passing it on to my colleague, Olivia.
Thank you. So as Ebony mentioned, Olivia, I am Gonzalez, and I do not go anywhere without the M because it is the M in OMG Brand Story, and that is our brand consulting agency, my brand consulting agency. We really support purpose-driven brands in identifying and clarifying how to articulate who they are, what they do, um, who they serve, and why people should go to them as their number one choice. I spent 20 plus years, probably at this point, 25 plus years in corporate communications, brand communications, brand development, and have myself been a copywriter and editor. And we still work with lots of organizations as well as professionals in clarifying what's really important. You have to know thyself and you have to know thy audience. And being able to position themselves to be successful in whatever venture they want to go into. And so that is definitely something that we love to focus on. It's my absolute pleasure to be here. And so if you hear OMG, it's because those are really are my initials. And that is really how I am known in my industry as well. And this is a very exciting topic we're going to be diving into today. Oh,
Thank you
can I
both.
say one more thing
Go
really
ahead.
quickly? Ollie, I need to participate in your. I'm from Dallas, Texas. I'm not from Dallas, Texas. That's a lie. I'm in Dallas, Texas right now. This is where I live. And that is Pepito. He is our 50 plus year old red crested Amazon who happens to be in the other room. Otherwise, he would participate in the conversation. And I have two black cats, Mousy and Crazy, both of them asleep. And as Ollie said, also wish that I was being quiet. Just wanted to participate in the group conversation there.
Thank you for that. So, here's what's going to happen today. We are going to have a wonderful discussion about portfolios. First, we will have a nice meaty discussion. We'll have a little bit of Q&A. Then we will have the workshop portion, which we will be recording the event except the workshop portion so that you can participate freely without thinking about things. And then we will come back for more Q&A because I'm sure that you all will have questions after you work through some of the exercises. Sound good to everybody? All right, so let's get started. So while I know that as editors, we all have dictionaries and we use them a lot, I still think that it would be prudent to define what a portfolio is. So I'm going to ask my guests, what is a portfolio? Would you
I
like to
mean,
start?
I
Go
can kick
ahead.
off. Sure, I can. That's okay, Laurie.
Yep.
Um, I'll just kick off and say I really, when I think about a portfolio and how we leverage and help and support everyone that we work with, professionals, um, as well as organizations, when they're putting together a portfolio, it really is a curation. It's a curated um, demonstration that highlights um, a lot of your skill set. And it is a visual storytelling in a way of exactly who you are, what you do, kind of back to what anchors what's very important in the work that we do with purpose-driven clients. And it's a way to demonstrate the wholeness of who you are. And it's not just a dumping ground for every single thing that you've ever written. That is absolutely not what a portfolio is, but it definitely is uh, a way to verify your ability in a way that resumes don't allow for you to do that. And so it's a visual showcase really of your work that helps define who you truly are and what people can expect from you when they work with you. For me, that's kind of in a nutshell. It's also a marketing tool, is how we leverage that in portfolios versus something like a resume, which I think we're going to get into here in just a little bit as well.
Thanks, Olivia. Uh, one of the things that I think about portfolios is that, my career began as a sixth grade teacher. And I started at what would be considered an alternative elementary school, and we used portfolios for young students to think about what they were doing instead of grades. Um, Completely nonlinear, completely a storytelling vehicle for young children to say, this is what I did, and this is why I did it, and this is what I liked and what I didn't like. And they made decisions about what to put in their portfolios. I think that's, in fact, something that really stuck with me as I started as a freelance editor and indexer, that I wanted to have a way to easily show people what I was doing that was part of a storytelling, a narrative um, way of presenting myself. I also went from being a sixth grade teacher to working in a number of different nonprofits, working with philanthropy, working with different organizing communities. And in each of those places, I was primarily writing grants, editing other people's material for reports. And I started realizing that I was pretty good at some of this, but I was doing it in the context of these different organizations and communities. So a resume didn't really help people understand what I was doing or why I was doing and what my knowledge base was. So I started, well, I should say, I've never had a website. I rarely have a resume. I have lots of materials that are like a collectible deck of cards, like how you have baseball cards and you trade them and they have different information and stats and all these things. And I started thinking, oh, my portfolio is like a deck of cards. I pull out my favorite things or the things that I think that my clients will like and understand and help in our relationship that's developing. And that's how I think about a portfolio. It's multidimensional, it's nonlinear, it's mix and match, and it supports the things that we need to share with our different clients at the moment that they need to hear and see and understand them.
I love that visual interpretation of that deck. And it's funny, as we were talking about that, it made me also think, and I hope this is okay, just open conversation and dialogue about this. Stop me if not. Um, it really makes me think of this collection, this deck of cards. And as you were talking, it correlated with what I was thinking about, this curation, right? When you think of a museum and a collection, and this very, it's they're it really is a curated collection of all of the best and the most interesting pieces, and also specific to what exactly you want to do. Because if you're featuring this, whether it's this deck of cards or whether it's this curated collection, it should be fully representative of who you are. And it also should represent where you want to go, not just where you've been, in a way. And when I think about portfolios and that storytelling piece and that collection, because I love that there's a little bit of pieces, and what a great anchor point to the sixth grade with the kids, and thinking about what to put that portfolio, because that is exactly what it is. Um, And it has to come from you and you being able to identify exactly what are the things that we really want to talk about. What are the things that we really want to feature in the portfolio? And it's got to matter. And it's got to be fully representative of who you are. And it also has to be fully representative of, you don't want to put work necessarily out there, in my personal opinion, that you don't necessarily want more of. I have got a depth of experience in writing report. We talked about this jokingly before, a depth of experience in writing reports for large corporate organizations. And I'm talking like these, 200 plus these, whether it's diversity, inclusion, and equity reports or the environmental, reports or what have you. And while I can do it and I'm fully experienced in that, that's not necessarily going to be part of my curated collection because for me personally, just because I can doesn't mean I should. And so for my portfolio, if I were to curate, and similar to Laurie, what you were talking about, at this point in my career, I have made enough, deeper connections along the path that I don't necessarily focus too heavily in that area, but I have had a need for, and I have had in the past, past and what I bring to the table. And so I think being intentional and being strategic, specifically when thinking about what is a portfolio for you, is a very wise way to approach because it is that deck of cards, it is that curated collection of pieces of the most important components um, that you either have been able to offer or that you want to offer. And also, I mean, and I know we're probably going to get a little bit further into as well. When we were talking early on, you gave me a very great, I wasn't even thinking about this, but you mentioned, Laurie, your personal work, you know, as being part of your portfolio as well. Because my mindset when we first started talking about this early on was, okay, how do you curate these things specifically as that marketing tool? Because of my experience in brand development and thinking through that lens and realizing, oh God, that is so, yes, your whole self. This has to be a big, you have to be thinking about all of the different materials that you want to, put together in order to showcase that work.
Yeah.
That's really, really helpful. Um, my next question, both of you touched upon this earlier. A lot of people are used to standing on their resumes as, um, almost a curation of their work experience, but not necessarily a curation of who they are, what they want to do, and where they want to go. So, could you sort of explain briefly, um, sort of why a resume is different than a portfolio? Because I feel like sometimes the lines are still a little bit blurred because people are going to, in many cases, not all, are going to pursue certain projects, either for the sake of providing for themselves and their families or in pursuit of where they want to go. But that may not necessarily bring people to where it may not necessarily bring people on the path that they want to be, but resumes can feel like starting that path. So how do how do editors bridge that gap between using a resume to express their work history and using a portfolio to express themselves and where they want to go?
Mm. I'll start by saying that it's not that we can't use resumes. Resumes are actually really helpful in the sense that um, many years ago, when I first entered the workforce, which was 46 years ago, actually, um, one of my mentors said, write down everything you do. Every week, just jot down on a piece of paper something that you did this week that is something you want to do later on in life. Even if you don't know you're going to do it, write it down. So, from 1978 until now, there is a piece of paper. The original paper is yellowed, wrinkled, stained, went through a fire, went through a flood. but it actually just lists everything that I've ever done. Um, a lot of random things, but it's really helpful because I forget that I've done things. I've forgotten that I was interested in certain things, and I've forgotten that I've had certain experiences that have shaped who and what I do. Now, I used to use that to develop a resume. And that was in part because I was applying for jobs where you had to send in a resume and then now upload a resume. I don't use that in my freelance work because I don't have to. Um, what I can do instead is rely on that linear narrative and use it to help me pull out the things that I think are the highlights, um, the low points, the things I want to do more of, to reflect on the things I'd like to do less of. So it's not that a resume is useless. It's actually very useful. But for my work, um, when I'm working with my different clients in the different communities, it's really helpful to be responsive to their questions and their needs. And a resume can't quite do that as much. So I should also say how it works for me. And so I have lots of snippets. I use Text Expander, which is one tool that you can use, but I have lots of snippets, which are basically different paragraphs that explain the different highlights of the work that I like to do. And I really do mix and match them, but that is based on a little bit on the chronology. But then I take the chronology and I try to develop my actions and my thinking and my theorizing about change. Because again, most of the folks that I work with are working as change agents. Um, so it's actually really important to those folks that they know that I've been on the board of a youth organizing project for 7 years because they know that I might actually understand the different concepts. Um, uh, I worked in sexuality and reproductive health at the Ford Foundation for 6 years, and I think that has helped many people know that I understand um, the global footprint of sexuality and reproductive health. And that's helped, I think, when I'm working with a client who says, "Well, will you know this word or this concept or the other players in the field?" And so that work that I did at Ford is not directly connected to my work as an editor or an indexer, but it certainly supports it. It says that I know what's happening in the field. I don't know if that answers it, but I'm going to throw it to Olivia. She'll massage my words.
Well, I was gonna say, number one, I want to say what a great practice. Holy moly, I wish I would have done that when I started about writing every single thing down. It's never too late to start, everyone. I'm going to write this down today. So I definitely think that's a great practice. Not kidding. I will be starting that today because it's always helpful because we evolve. We
Mhm.
evolve. Not only does our writing evolve, but our perspective evolves and our experience helps shape what that is. And so, exactly what you said, where, it's a broader, the resume itself is great context for the chronological order of your experience, but also it tells its own story in its own way, and it's just as important. Now, from my perspective and how we see things, the lens through which I'm viewing these things all the time, especially when we work with professionals, is that this resume. In general, right, it's just stating your experience, whereas a portfolio is a demonstration of what that experience is, right? Um, and your ability to actually showcase that skill set. Here's the thing for me when I'm always going to anchor back to, and I see some familiar faces, by the way, in the audience, who they're going to say, she says that all the time. Um, when I, when I talk about you must be intentional and you must be strategic. So when you think about a resume and how it's being used today, you have to think about things like the ATS, an applicant tracking system, because 9 times out of 10, your resume is being pushed through a processor. No one's even looking at that before you even get, the opportunity to share a portfolio. So you have to be very strategic and intentional about what you include in a resume versus what you include in your portfolio, because the resume, um, And I don't know if everyone is already. I'm just going to high level talk about that connection and talk about bridging, like you talked about a second ago, Ebony, where you have to be consider. Let's say whether it's from a obviously the freelance perspective, there's a particular project description that is out there, or it may be a job description that is a temporary something to anchor to. The process is you take the context of the job description, you identify what are those keywords. You have to then align with your resume to ensure that it actually gets through the ATS, because that is the reality of what we're dealing with now, right? When we submit to do work, that is very likely it will go through that type of a system. So you have to be strategic about what that is. But that's the foot in the door. And so therefore, you're being able to align it strategically so that you have the foot in the door, then opens the possibility for you to then be able to say, great, so glad you acknowledge and recognize that this is my, skill set that encompasses, and to Laurie's point, it is going to catch things that the type of organization that you work for or the type of project that you work for is going to say something, but it's not going to say everything in a way that the portfolio will be able to translate that for you. So being intentional and strategic about the resume and what you do, and how you think about how is this being used, and who is it that specific to the description. If anyone, and I hope nobody's out, knock on wood, please tell me you are adjusting your resume per your, what you're, putting out there, because that is important because of that, because of the systems that they're being placed into. So the bridge then comes with, I'm able to identify, and here is all of my experience, and it gives you some idea of how I have worked or what I could have knowledge about. But it's really after you get through that first door that then you can use your portfolio as this demonstration of the skill set that you are including in the resume itself. So I think there is absolutely importance behind having a resume, and it is very different in how you should use it, and being intentional about how you prepare that, in the same way that you would the portfolio. You don't want to have to repeat. It's almost like, you are basically giving the teaser, in the resume, and you're telling the story in the portfolio in a way that cannot easily be done, in a resume, because especially because of the way it's being used now across industries. And you've just got to be cognizant of that and making sure that you are preparing, um, intentionally, on how to kind of get to the piece where you can actually tell the full story of who you are and what you bring to the table. Um, that's kind of how I see like that connection being made. And I'm always thinking about, I jokingly say all the time, I sit at 35,000 foot view all the time. That's just how I'm wired. I am rarely in the forest. I am usually up on the mountains to be able to see. And when you look at the big picture of where are you now, what experience have you brought to the table, and what direction do you want to take your work in the future, it's critical that you are strategic about the difference in the resume and the portfolio and how you leverage both.
I love how you said that a portfolio is the demonstration of the work. I I love that. I've never thought about it that way, which seems silly, but I love the perspective that you bring for that. So I do have a question. Um, for those who are looking to build their portfolios or convert them or demonstrate their experience, is there an approach or framework or some sort of structure to do that effectively? Because people want to showcase their best. And sometimes it can be tricky to figure out how or what to do or how to do it. You know what I mean?
Absolutely. I can get this one off. And my perspective is, and I'm sure everyone has heard this. It's never the what, it's always the how. Um, so, which is why everyone's so skilled in this room with the how. This is how we make our bread and butter. Yes, it's in the how. Um, The what is really going again. I will return. This is my anchoring thing, y'all. I will return to this over and over again, being intentional and being strategic. Um, what you are including is really dependent on where you want to go. What do you want to be doing with this? And so your framework is the um, what gets included based on where you want to go with your work. And again, like I said before, you will never find all of my wonderful, excellent reporting work anywhere. Number one, because of NDAs, but number two, because that's not something that I want to be focused on. Again, even though I can do that, and I might maybe I might pull a piece from it, but it's not going to be featured as report if I have permission to, that kind of thing. So the what is the framework of what exactly do you wish to curate with the intention of where do you want to go? And the how is dependent for me. The how is dependent on who the audience is. So sometimes you can see it may come across. You might be able to build a portfolio, and I've seen them all. Sometimes they're a website, doesn't necessarily have to be. Sometimes they're a PDF. Sometimes it's a simple like a deck that you can put together that you present and or send over to somewhere. Sometimes it's a hyperlink at the bottom within your resume at times. From the how is a lot of and I'm talking about the mechanics of like when you think about the functionality of it. It is also dependent on who you're dealing with and the work that you are submitting for review. So if, for instance, I am doing some work with a creative agency, I will say the how in the way that I deliver my portfolio to a creative agency is going to be different than a corporate organization that is hiring me for something specific on a project. I'm not going to just send everyone to a Slate website. I'm going to be really intentional and very strategic about how I deliver that. And also in the curation of certain things. And just like I said with the resume, again, my personal perspective, um, I'm going to be very strategic in I want something I have an objective that I want to go after. So I'm going to do everything in my power to ensure I lock in on the path with specific language, with specific framework. And I'm going to do my homework with whatever it is, the creative agency, or whether it's a corporate organization, or whether it's a publisher, or whatever the deal is. I'm going to do my homework on the back end to ensure that what I'm collecting doesn't change me. It's because I'm only getting I'm curating everything that I have done that is fully representative of who I am, not only as a writer, an editor, but also culturally, my background and what I bring to the table and my insights and my experience and all of those things. That doesn't change in the what. That is the framework. How it is presented, which is the most important part of the piece, because that's how it gets seen. That's how it gets processed. That's what I'm thinking about when it comes to um, crafting the portfolio and then being able to deliver it in a way that is it means it's going to get to the right person.
One of the things about developing a portfolio, and I think Olivia, you're speaking to this both specifically and in general, is that it's a journey of self-reflection, right? You can't
Yes,
actually, a
100%.
resume, because it's linear and because the resume has a particular history, or even a CV. I mean, CVs are even wilder, right? Because that's where you really write down every single thing you ever did
Yes.
ever. And 40-page CVs for an academic are not unheard of. Um, but in this context, what we're trying to emphasize is that you have to think about what it is you want to do and where you want to go. Now, lots of folks, about 20 years ago, there was an article, I think it was in Good Housekeeping, that said one of the big trends of self-employment jobs was going to be indexing. And I remember when all of us indexers are like, oh my God, all these people are joining the field. And they are like, I just want to index. It's supposed to be the next big thing. And they hadn't thought about what it might mean to be an indexer. A lot of folks didn't know that you actually had to read the book. That's the number one thing that you do as an indexer. You read the book. many times very closely. Um, the folks weren't sure where they wanted to go as an indexer. And it meant that a lot of folks that I mentored had a really difficult time staying focused because they actually really didn't like indexing. And,
Mm,
if you don't like what you're doing, as much as we can, we should try not to do it. But we don't
amen.
always know that we don't like things. Early in my career, I was uh, hired as a staff indexer for University of Minnesota Press, which many people will know is a very progressive, um, very exciting press in terms of their work. I was doing folks like Miranda Joseph and Judith Butler. I had all the comp lit people who were illegible and who were proud of writing illegible text. But I have a great deal of patience. So I would sit there and I would work through it. And I did that for about 3 years. And a staff indexer mostly meant that um, I was a freelancer, but they would send clients to me and they would pay me. The press would pay me. That has changed over the last 25 years, where mostly the scholar pays me. But at the time, the press paid me. So it was a pretty steady job. I knew I had at least, 6 to 10 indexes from Minnesota every year. But I started to realize that even though I was really patient, and there's some folks are in the attending, they're gonna laugh at me and they're gonna come tell me how silly this is. But I was like, I don't like conflict. I don't like these folks. They think people are real and they're people in the books. But I had a good gig and I knew other people would do anything to have steady freelance work. But I started to think, what is it that I'm doing that I can take with me and use elsewhere? um, because I find my brain isn't really happy anymore doing conflict. I really love doing history. I really like working with anthropologists. I really like content areas. My family is from the Caribbean, and so I really enjoy doing work on Caribbean projects. One, because I learn more, but also I contribute my knowledge that I've built over 25 years of working with Caribbeanists. I do a lot of work around the queer Caribbean. And so that's a field where I've seen it grow from the early 90s till now. And so I can read something and say, oh, this is a contribution to the field because I know the field so well as an outsider. And I started saying, oh, how can I do more of this work? And that meant I had to showcase not just the projects I did, but how I did them and whether people that I was working with felt good about the work I was doing. And so that became an aha moment, you know, and that meant a lot of different things. One thing I will say that as an indexer, um, often a press, some booksellers, Amazon for a long time, you could see the index to a book online. And so I would often sort of put together cohorts of projects I've worked on. So that might be the Caribbean, it might be the Spanish speaking Caribbean, it might be the queer Caribbean, it might be history of warfare, of pirates. That was a great book, actually. It could be Ugly Betty. And so I could mix and match the different projects that sort of went from a big area to a smaller area. And as I said, I was lucky because my work is published in a way that I could send people to those. And some people would be like, oh, wow, I never knew there was a book about Ugly Betty. I'll find it. And then watch Ugly Betty, which I had to do in the course of indexing this book.
Ugly
Um,
Betty, Betty La Fea. I love that.
Betty La Fea. Yep. And so I really started thinking, how do I organize what I've done? And so I could have them overlap. And again, certainly the last 10 years, the technology has made it easier for me to showcase my work. I do a lot of work for organizations like the Community Resource Hub, which is an abolitionist organization that works on anti-police violence. So that a lot of the work that I've done has been published there. And and they are a site where they often will say who the copy editor is, who the proofreader is, who the graphic designer is. And so I can link to those places. There are other places, I'd say everything I wrote at Ford, uh, 80% of that did not have my name on it. Um, but I have lots of folks that I work with who will say, it was really good working with you. This was an exciting project. And so part of my portfolio also includes individuals, sometimes who are listed so that you can make a phone call to speak with them. Sometimes they write testimonials. Sometimes they try to think. There was a third way that I use individuals, but anyway, so just to say that there's this whole experience is about thinking about what I want to do. I've been in the business long enough that I'm at the end stage of my career. And so I look back and I think, how do I want to use the experience and the knowledge that I've gained over these many years to best use? Um, but again, in 1999, I decided I would become an indexer, and I really focused on how to do that and what were the kinds of things that people needed. Um, and then I tried to meet those needs.
I think
That was
that's a
a long
really
ramble.
Oh, I love that though. I love it. I love it. I love it. And you're creating sparks for me all over the place.
Mm,
And I love that. I think, j thank you so much for capturing. It really is a journey of self-reflection throughout your work. And I will add to how you've kind of taken those pieces that you're really passionate about and collect those. Um, from my perspective and all that, I am completely and utterly obsessed with human behavior, brand psychology, human psychology, and how the mind works and how our experiences influence the way that we perceive and what we attract and how we, collect the journey along the way. And as Ebony well knows, I love to use lots of analogies in my uh, just describing how things go through, but it genuinely is as you go along this journey. And my first two rules are know thyself and know thy audience. And
mm,
number three is follow the joy. It really is about identifying what is it and a part of your work. By the way, we didn't say this a second ago, but I'm seeing this on my, if any of you all want to turn on your captions, if it's helpful for you, you can do so. There's like buttons on the bottom. If that's helpful, I know we've already talked for 40 minutes. My apologies for forgetting. I know, I think I said that I was going to say that and I didn't mention it. So if you need to, you can. In the bottom there to see any captions. But what I was going to say is that, following that joy and having that journey of self reflection, it does equate to when you begin to do that and you begin to prune the things that are not necessarily serving the direction that you really want to go, or how I would say your higher purpose or the direction that you really want to be going into, when you begin to prune and it shows up in a resume or a portfolio. I know we're going a little deeper, but I love this stuff. This is because it is a reflection of who you are. At the end of the day, it's not just a marketing tool. Is it? Can it be used? Of course it can. But it really is what do you want? Where do you want to go? What type of work are you passionate about? How do you want to, create the path in front of you toward the direction that you want to go in? And it is always going to be to follow that joy. Yes, Olivia, but I've got to pay my bills and I have to put them. You will be so surprised what doors open when you show up where you should be. You will be so surprised at the opportunities, the connections, the people that will say, I know you, I see you and recognize you for the passion that you bring, because that is part of who you are. That is part of, it's because I'm so obsessed and have been for a bazillion years about human behavior and just psychology and brand psychology and the greater understanding of the more you understand who you are, the lens is so your perspective is just gets broader and broader and broader along the way, and you can then leverage and use that in your work. You then are then introduced to different experiences, which then add to the broadening of your work, the breadth of your work, the depth of your work. And then you're able to present that in such a way. And you do become this individual that is known for, and Laurie and I are well into our journeys of and experience of where we have been. And I've been extremely fortunate, and I agree fully with Laurie talking about the testimonial component of the pieces and the people that you work with and those connections. I have been so successful at where I have been because of the work, not only of the work that has been done, but of the connections that have been made and the understanding and the fact that there are people you will meet along this journey who will support and recognize and acknowledge if you are being true to yourself and you are showing up wholly and fully in in whatever position, and again, you will be surprised at what doors open and what opportunities present themselves when you give yourself the chance to do things that bring you joy, and that you do things in a way that honors who you truly are. And if we're going to flip the switch real quick and go back to the you know, beep beep boop boop robotics of how everybody has to have a job and we have to whatever. It's a great marketing strategy. It is your unique differentiator as well. If you want to put it into that context, if you're not all about the I'm a self-reflection journey and that is maybe that's not part of whatever, then think of it that way. It is a great marketing tool to help position you in a very competitive market because now the door the doors have blown off of all industries. Anybody and everybody is contributing to do everything. You have to be unique. It is extremely competitive, the work that we do. And therefore, the fact that you do bring your own unique perspective, but you do it wisely, you do it intentionally and strategically, knowing how to get your foot in the door first by aligning with what are they looking for. And then once you're in there, say, now look what I can do with my portfolio. And let me show you the fullness of who I am and what I bring to the table. That's what's going to get you to move in the right direction. But be careful what you ask for, like I said, because if you go out there putting environmental reports, you're going to get them. Ask me how I know.
Yeah.
Um,
It's very, very true. It's very true. And I think that's something that we often forget, that we say we do all these things. Like I'm telling you, when I realized that I no longer wanted to index comp lit, it was like, psh, because I kept telling people that's what I did. No wonder that's what people were coming to me for.
yes, exactly.
Um, I really support portfolios. And again, part of that is as a former sixth grade teacher and how much I saw that it built confidence and self-awareness in my 11-year-olds. And I think that still works if we're 21 or 31 or 41 or whatever as we go on in life, because it really does help us to understand a little bit about what we want to do. And
Mhm.
I think Ebony's going to talk about that a little bit more. I think we're going to take some questions in a few minutes, but I did want to say portfolios are not easy. Okay. They're not simple. They take a lot of time and sometimes they involve a lot of heartache. We have to let go of some things. We have to step out and ask for some things that we aren't sure are going to come our way. So it is hard. I do think that portfolios work really well for people who are storytellers and people who come from community of storytellers who work by example, who see a narrative thread everywhere, even in the concrete sidewalk. It really works for us. And I think when we're looking at our client base, we also have to understand that portfolios don't work for every client either.
Mhm.
They may not have the patience, they may not have the interest. But again, this is about finding your work, your best work, the work that is your work, you know? Um,
That you want
and
more of.
and that you want more of. Yes. And it feels a little pie in the sky at this moment of falling income, rates that are incredibly low, as Olivia said, the competitiveness of our industry, um, artificial intelligence and how people are using that instead. But I am in a place in my work that I just want to do the work that matters. And I just always come back to that. There was a time when I wasn't able to do that. I just had to pay the bills, right? But I am in a place now where that thread of always wanting to do work that matters has become more and more of my practice. And that's because I made space for it. So,
I think that is a great, and I would very quickly, because I know we have to move on. I love that you said that. And if I may add to that, in that knowing, remember, if you are in a place that you've just described where, and me too, been in that place where, yes, I do have to take the stupid, whatever it is that I don't want to do necessarily because I have to, make sure that I'm continuing to have, flow of money or what have you. Remember that we've all heard it a million times. Don't focus on the brass ring. Focus on the very next step in front of you. That's all you have to do. What is the very next actionable step that's going to set you on the path to that direction that you really want to go in? And so if it's just one little whatever, but maybe you tweak a little bit your portfolio so that you're not getting more of those jobs, and you realize, oh gosh, no wonder I keep putting stuff out there that I don't really want to do because I did it. And then they keep giving me stuff and I didn't want to do it anymore. But when you realize what that is, that one little step, you will find you don't have to think about the big picture per se and the big what's my end goal for what have you. You just have to know the general direction of where you want to go and what the very next step is. And that's it. And it can be a very small step too. But the more small steps you take in the right direction, the the lower the chance you're going to run into distractors and chaos and things that are going to keep you in the in the spin cycle, and instead be able to take each step appropriately in the right direction, and you will end up in a place where you welcome the work. That phrase, all money is not good money, that's true. I have fired clients before. And so, but you don't get there right away. All of us have to navigate some part of the journey in order to get there, but don't lose hope. Keep basically the knowledge that it's just that next step, and not to drown in the bigger picture of things because you will get there eventually.
so just to add,
I
again,
love this.
coming back to you, Ebony, one
Let's
other thing,
volley.
which is
This
that,
is great. I love this.
so Olivia, you wrote these reports, these environmental reports, long
Yes.
ass reports.
Yes.
You did not want to do them anymore, but
Oh,
you did show that you were able to do something. And
absolutely.
a portfolio advisor like me would say, well, what did you learn? So what can you share with um, your client pool? You can do long form projects. They
Yes.
come in on time. You can do research about, I mean, I wouldn't say research about things that I know nothing about and have no interest in. I would find a better way to say that. But you proved that you could do work,
Yes.
excellent work, editing and writing work that was a little bit outside of your knowledge base. So you've proved that you can do that. You can do that quickly, efficiently, and on time, right? Maybe in
Absolutely.
that project, you learned that you could work with um, different environmental engineers. You could work with a team of 6 or 7 people and get a project from outline to finished and publication. That's what your portfolio says about those kinds of projects. And it might be that and there is an environmental report, and there is also a report about those birds, the red bird and over your shoulder. It could
Red
be
crested Amazon.
requested Amazon. It could be about a series of articles in young adult literature that were very similar, that you brought together a team of people to do a long, coherent report from a team on time, well done, excellent, excellent product and project. So you look at the work that you do and you try to find the threads in them so that when I went from comp lit, my big thing was I indexed Judith Butler. And people are like, oh my God, I use your index all the time because I can't understand anything else she says. If it wasn't for the index, I wouldn't have made it. And so it was really helpful for me to say, I take really dense theoretical concepts and help create a map that makes it easier for the reader to find the content that they're looking for. And
It's the
so
how. It's the how.
exactly. And so
It's the
that
how.
I no longer had to do comp lit to do that, but I did start to say to people, this is what I'm good at. And so they'd
Exactly.
say, okay, my book needs that kind of thing because I'm making some new contributions to the field and I want people to be able to understand that. I need an index that really can take people on a journey.
I
Now,
love that.
again,
It's positioning,
this is
really.
just who I am. It may not be who you are. I like talking with clients. I love the energy of the back and forth. I'm a teacher at heart. I'm a sixth grade teacher at heart. Like I'm not a 10th grade teacher. I'm not a second grade teacher. I'm a sixth grade teacher, which is the best part of living is being at the cusp of discovery, right?
Mm,
So I try to take my clients back to that moment of feeling like the world is in front of me and I'm excited. And that's what I try to do in my portfolio is to show how I bring that to people. And I try to, as much as possible, to have evidence of that. And the evidence can also be in the construction. Um,
hmm
OMG does brand design and web design. And so there's also other things that you can do that add to that. So the colors that you use evoke a mood. The kind of fonts that you use evoke a mood and a way forward. So all of those things come together in a portfolio in ways that a linear description of your work might not. But again, it really depends on who you are. I assume people are here because they're like, I want to do a portfolio. I want to figure out a way to showcase what I do in a way that better represents myself. I think that's the segue you were waiting for, Ebony. I think we're Q&A and then some workshopping.
Yeah.
I
I know
got
that's why
you.
people are here.
Um, yeah. So, I wanted to show you all what a portfolio could look like for an editor. So, about 9 or so years ago, I created a website literally just to serve as a portfolio. And I've updated it over the years, and it's actually become more and more useful in, more recent times. So if you'd like to take a look, I can poke around and show you real quick. I'm going to drop it in the chat. So it's portfolio.ebonyegussine.wilkins.com, and I'm going to go there now. Um, Follow along on your own computer because screen shares are wonky. Um, so if you happen to be on the page, you'll see that at home, I have this nice, lovely description of what I stand for and an overview of the things that I've done, like the frameworks that I've created and the influence that I have had on the editorial world. And I have a button that says start here. And this was my way of like ultra compacting a resume. And so this is who I am. These are my leadership examples. Here are my skills. And then I have a link to my actual resume um, because some people just prefer that, and that's okay. And then if you see the little hamburger menu next to the search bar and click it, you will see that I have categorized all of the ways that I edit, all of the types of editing that I do, and design work, because I do some layout and design. And if you click on, for example, layout and design, you'll see that you don't have to be this extra. I'm extra. That's what the extra E at Ebony stands for. I'm kidding. So, so you'll see that I put the covers of the layout and design work that I've done for different places like NACHO and the Haas Institute and Government Alliance on Race and Equity and a few other things. If you go back to the menu and go to copy editing, I have examples of things that I have copy edited that are public. Um, and so I did me and a colleague did emergency the hazard mitigation plan for New York City. I did some work for Advancement Project, and I love that people are able to see some of the work without navigating away from the website. And sometimes people want to go to the source and see the whole thing. So I have that as well. And um, I'm going to touch on this slightly. And I know that this is um, a concern for editors everywhere, especially when it comes to portfolios, just like, well, I signed an NDA, or this person may not want their information to be shared in a certain way. Or maybe you have a project that hasn't been finished or its publication status is unknown. That has happened to me a lot. Sometimes I've done excellent work and, you know, for whatever reason, it hasn't seen the light of day, or it's in a closed environment that's not accessible. So for that, and this is just my approach to doing it, um, I have a works in progress page, and it explains that, please don't copy this, please don't share it. And my works in progress are password protected. And I only share that password with like a corporation that wants to hire me, or someone who is looking to employ me as staff, or whatever the reason is. I password protect that so people can get a sense of the works that I've done, see what shape they're in, and just get a better feel, because the rest of my portfolio may not reflect all of the great experience I've had. This portfolio has over a decade of work in it. And if you poke around, you'll see what I mean. I've done all kinds of editing, layout and design. I've made infographics. The booklets that I wrote for the EFA are on here. You can click on booklets and please buy them. Um, all sorts of things. And it's it's a really validating way of saying that, hey, look at all this I've done. I haven't made a list of everything I've done like you have, Laurie. And it took me a while to put this together, because I'm like, what is it that I have done? Some things stick out in my mind and some things don't. And, I had to go back into my archives. Sometimes I had to hunt down things that I knew were public, but I hadn't been provided links for, and all of that. And this is really important. You'll see on my portfolio page under contact, there is a form for people to contact me. There is a drop down for all the kinds of things that I want to have brought into my editing career. So it's, who do you want to work with? What kind of work do you want to do? I put that front and center so that people can say, oh, this is the kind of assignment that I can hire her for. It is WordPress, by the way. Um, I actually used a template. I did all of the other stuff myself. I had to figure out how I wanted to curate this. This is the way that I decide to do it. Where am I quoted in? Clips and links are just like, did I write a press release? Did I do an article? Nearly everything is in here. But the reason why I wanted to point out contact is because you have to make it easy for people to find you, because if they can't find you, they can't hire you. And
Absolutely.
money is nice. So make it so you can do this on your LinkedIn. You can put your description on there and say, hey, this is who I am. This is what I want to do. This is how to get in contact with me. It doesn't mean that you have to take everything that comes across your plate, because sometimes things aren't a good fit. I've also been in a situation where I got a nice contract and then I had to end it, or we mutually ended it because it just wasn't working out. But that's less important than saying, this is who I am, this is where I want to be, this is how you can work with me, this is how you contact me. You have to open yourself up out there just a little bit. And whether you use, a PDF as your portfolio, whether you use LinkedIn, which there is a button for publications, by the way, whether you build a website, whether you stick with the resume and give your portfolio somewhere else, you get to choose that. And you get to fit it to where you are. And it takes some time to adjust to, okay, I want to do it this way. No, this way isn't working for me. Or, hey, I got some feedback on my portfolio that I want to put in another way. So, like, the reason why my portfolio is designed this way is because it appears in a lot of places, and I don't have the capacity to constantly curate for people. So I just label everything well and I stick it on there. And,
And it's a large volume of work over a period of time. I want to emphasize that too. You made
yeah,
mentioned it was over 10 years of work that you're curating for very specific purposes. Yes?
yes,
Yeah.
absolutely. And you can pick whatever format works for you. You don't have to do it this way at all. Like I said, I'm extra. But, make it easier for people to contact you. Give yourself a chance. Like that, that might be the takeaway here. Give yourself a chance. Like sometimes people may not necessarily see you in the way that you want to be seen, or they may not understand that this is the work that you do. This is the way that it should be done. For example, I have a handful of really nice testimonials that I used to share myself some days because sometimes editing is editing. Um, they're not on my portfolio. They're on my company website, which is fine. That doesn't have to be the choice that you make. Having your different types of, say, I do copy editing. Having some examples there might be helpful. Having some testimonials about your copy editing might be helpful. All of these things help establish your legitimacy is not the word, but I think you know what I'm getting at. It helps
Verify your,
establish,
yeah. It's a supportive form of verification, basically.
yes,
And it's social proof is what it is.
yes,
Um,
exactly.
and it's also supportive of the reputation that you build within your industry and within the context of who you are working with as well. And then it's also serves as a bit of an introduction sometimes when people want to gauge more or less how is it working with you and are maybe unsure. When people are genuine in those testimonials and demonstrate what how great it was to actually work with you, not only just in the quality of the work, but the fact that you were great to work with, you were easy to work with, um, yes, that's exactly social proof, social media proof. That's exactly what it is. And so when you it's positioning really is what it is as well. And so to have that support of those testimonies, and sorry, I'm interjecting here when I know I'm not supposed to be interjecting, but I'm
It's
nerding out
fine.
with you. I'm nerding out with you because this is also like the piece where, you know, I'm sure many of us have heard the no like trust, when you come to like marketing and things of that nature, whatever. That's based on actual human psychology. That is based on the fact that people have to get to know you. This is why know thyself, know thy audience, before they begin to like you, because they have to like you in order to convert and pay you money, trust you to convert and actually hire you. So you being able to create this demonstration of your work, having the social proof to support that, oh, they can like you because there are other people who have to like you, is going to be a closer path to then getting them to convert into hiring you as well.
Absolutely.
Look at me
And
nerding out on the psychology. Are we surprised? No.
I love working with both of you. Um, so I wanted to say that part of this gathering today was to do a workshopping portion. The workshopping portion that we have is kind of meaty, and I'm sure that you all want to noodle on it. So in support of this, I am creating some resources that we will stick in the EFA community. There is a community in there, a micro community for editors of color. So please join and tag me when you join and say hello. I will be putting resources in there for us to start this journey on what it looks like for ourselves. I will be in there, active in the community. We can bounce ideas off of each other. We can work asynchronously. We can show up for each other and we can get feedback from each other as much as you're willing to share. Um, so that is coming soon. And I would love for you all to participate in that, especially as we move toward the next workshop that will happen in June. But I would love to give you all a chance in the meantime to ask questions of Laurie and Olivia because I'm sure that you have all of these questions and we would love to hear from them, hear from you about them. So feel free to raise your hands or take yourself off mute and share with us.
I really liked the comment in the chat. Tiffany Vakilian said, "Your portfolio is what my portfolio wants to be like when it grows up." I just thought that was a very fun comment. Thank you, Tiffany. I wanted to highlight it for folks.
Thank you. Thank you. I had to think about it pretty hard because it's like I have all of this stuff. How does it relate to each other and how does it represent myself? So it took a lot of thinking. And, just like I imagine you all will, I sat down with a piece of paper. I really did. And I said, these are all the things. And this is how I think would best organize it. And as an editor, I thought, what kind of editing do I want to do? And what kind of editing do I want to be known for? What do I want to work in? Which is what Laurie and Olivia were saying. And so that's what I did. And it took a long time. And there are things that are not in here that I have definitely done. And that's okay. Like sometimes I did some work with financial institutions. They're not in there. And there's a good reason for that. Not just that it's not my brand, but it just wasn't where I wanted to go.
Yeah, it was a selective. I mean, you do it intentionally. I mean, you were being strategic about what it is that you want to collect and put in here. And I also love that the, drop down that you have at the end for the contacts that really says, hey, this is what I'm available to do. Oh, wonderful. It looks like we're having questions come in. I was going to say, because that was your like perfect segue into like, what exactly should they be thinking about right now? And then kind of, because I don't know how are we on time? I don't even know. Are
Um,
we?
We have 20 minutes.
yeah.
Is that yes? Okay, 20 minutes. So do we want to hop into the questions? I think there's a
Yes,
couple.
Ebony Bryant has a question.
We
Does
have two
anyone want to
questions in the
tackle them?
chat, but Marie Burke actually raised her hand first. If we could get her
Okay.
question first.
Yes.
I think my question is actually very similar to the questions in the chat. I was just thinking and admiring Ebony's portfolio and thinking, well, she has a lot of really great experience and expertise, but a lot of us are newer starting out. And, typical portfolio in other fields, you're showing examples of your work. But if we are in a position to be able to say, here's work that I've done, by showing, as you did, images of the actual publications, it's just there's less to work with. And how do you convey in a portfolio the work that you've done and what you want to do when you don't have much experience? I mean, it's a little bit more of a challenge, I think. Is it more of a statement? This is the kind of work I want to do. I'd like it. Um, you could have testimonials, of course, but it's harder to think of what to put in a portfolio when you don't have experience.
May
Do
I?
you want to try,
Well,
Laurie or
No,
Olivia?
OMG.
honestly, I was going to steal something Lori said, but when we were just talking, I was going to give you credit though. If we're at the very beginning of things, and it wasn't the way, so the lens, Marie, how you just kind of described it, is the lens that I was initially when we started talking about portfolios, what I was thinking about, okay, the collection of and how we kind of did it. And then Lori had this wonderful, hey, your personal work too. Like there's a lot of opportunity for you to be able to present the things that you are passionate about, that you are, committed to wanting to do more of, and make those as your, writing examples, and those as the examples that you have on there. So if you've done, writing, and I will tell you this too, Ebony, you were talking about a little bit ago about not having everything in there, whatever. I want to tell you how many times I have fought with myself with telling people I got published when I was 9 years old, and that y'all remember the highlights. Don't tell the children's highlights, whatever the deal is, where they used to open
Mm-hmm.
to have the whatever.
Oh, yeah.
I actually got published in there when I was really younger, and I'm always desperate to be like, and look at me telling everybody right now because I can't show you because I'm not supposed to, whatever. my point is, if I could, I would. Like I totally that would be the thing. That's my personal. I creative writing. It was something that was in there, that is doggone it is still good as a 9-year-old, I would say. But that's, Marie, when you talk about, I know it's, very different in what you're asking specifically, but your personal work and your approach and the areas of interest that you have and how you can position yourself or do your own personal projects in a way that would help position you for the kind of work that you want to do ongoing is perfectly acceptable to feature in a portfolio for sure. That's my perspective on that. And like I said, I saw that from, like I said, my brain was thinking about corporate stuff, and Laurie was like, "Hello, your personal, bring your whole self, bring everything to the table." And man, I wholeheartedly agree with that. And so that's immediately the first thing that I thought of when you said, "What do I put out there?" Believe me, you have much more to present than you think you do, probably.
I would add to that, to think about the skills. We do talk about that in, there's a type of resume that is built on skills. But I think in portfolios, we think about that also because you're clustering things together. Um, I'm not a writer. In fact, I hate writing. I'm legendary as an editor that really has no desire to ever write anything ever, ever. But I'm a really good editor because, other people do all the work. They put it on the page and then I can help move it around. But I never want to write anything from scratch. But that's actually how I became an editor. One of my first gigs was working for a community literacy organization, and I it was a collective. So we all took turns every 6 months. You would have a 6 month stint of doing a certain kind of the work. I came in as a teacher, and I was very happy doing that literacy teaching. But then I had this 6 month stint as a grant writer, and I was like, oh my God, I have to write. There's a blank page. I have to fill it. There's a deadline. Everybody has to buy in. I have to write a budget. Oh my God. I did it and I found that I was good at it because I figured out a few things. So I get other people to do drafts and outlines and then I could work with it. Um, but that was really one of the first jobs that I had after I left the public school system. And it wasn't until much later that I realized that I was an editor and I was a copy editor. When folks would always walk by my desk and say, "Can you look at this and just fix it?" And I'd be like, "Sure." And sometimes it was hard and sometimes it was easy. And yeah, I took a couple of classes so I could get better at some grammar things. Actually, I took adult Spanish class. That was my strategy for learning the names of the grammatical areas rather than taking a copy editing class. So I did it sort of backwards. Um, but it really helped me to think about when I actually hung up my shingle as a freelancer, what were all the different things? And again, I was lucky because I wrote down everything I ever did. But it really helped me to think what is transferable from other things that I do that I can use as I talk about myself as an editor, a copy editor, a proofreader, an indexer.
And
Uh,
no, go ahead, go ahead, go ahead.
Oh, no, but I think that's the thing. When we are emerging in one field, one discipline, one skill place, it's usually because we've already had a lot of experience and we feel confident that we can do this thing. I mean, even though I know lots of folks are like, why am I doing this? I'm not good at it. But there was a moment when you said, I want to do it. And that's enough. You wanted to do it because something about who you are and what you've already done kind of made you think, I'm on a path to doing this. And I think I can do a really great job. So part of going back, especially as you're beginning, um, emerging in this next stage of your work, is to think about what are all the things I already do, that I can add to this, that will help people understand what I do and how I do it and why I do it.
Hmm.
Um,
Can I just
yeah.
say thank you both very much for that? Because it reminds me that, I had a whole career before I became a freelance editor. And a lot of the work that I did in that other career is what led me to realize I'm an editor and I
Yeah.
love editing. And
Mhm.
so it doesn't have to be, the portfolio doesn't have to just be paid jobs as a freelance editor. It could be much
Yep.
broader than that. So thank you.
Yep. I'll say one
Absolutely.
other thing. So I've had a really eclectic background. So for 6 years, I worked at a place called Boat Baranek and Newman. They brought you what is now known as the World Wide Web. I mean, like for real. I was one of Al Gore's grantees to bring the web to public schools. Um, and one of the things when I was first doing tech, Apple was one of our partners, Macintosh at the time. One of the things teaching teachers about how to use the technology was to think about what are the things that help people understand the power of technology. Now, this was in 1989. And one of those things was people were like, I have a lot of shoes and I have a lot of church hats and I need a way to organize them. And so we taught folks how to program in HyperCard so that they could organize their church hats, so they could know which hat they wore and didn't wear the same hat within 6 weeks. And that was how they learned programming language. And that was like, okay, people already knew how to organize a database. Maybe they'd been doing it on index cards, maybe they'd been doing it on random sheets of paper, maybe they were holding it in their head, but they already had the knowledge. And taking that, how do you organize your hats? That helped people go, oh, I actually have a lot of skill. Now I just have to take it to this thing that you're calling hypercard, which is I'm a sixth grade teacher. I don't know anything about technology, but in fact, they had the original technology, analog technology, and they already had a framework for thinking. So try to find those things in your own work life, your own personal life, your family life, your community life, where you're already practicing these skills. Now, last thing, some of my clients would be like, Laurie's so nice. She chats all the time. Well, I get to work with clients that appreciate that. But I have learned that I am a storyteller and my stories help people think about the work that they want to do. So that's one of my, I wouldn't say a superpower, uh, but it's how I think of myself as what I do really well. And so I figured that out because, you're working in a sixth grade classroom with 32 kids. And I was like, oh, it's when I tell a story that folks understand what they can do. That's that's probably the most smartest thing I ever did in my life was figure out what I like to do and commit to trying to do it as much as I can in my
Know
and
thyself.
get paid for it.
Know thyself.
A great Hamlet
Nerd
quote,
out.
one of many.
Can I take that and answer kind of on a bridge that into one of Ebony Bryant's question? Is that okay,
Mhm.
Ollie? May I
Uh,
I
answer?
I
think
think
Ollie
we,
needs to do something first, a little housekeeping.
yeah, we
Oh,
have some housekeeping to do. We actually have two door prizes to give away. I'm very excited about that. We have selected folks from our attendance today. Olivia, would you like to talk about those two prizes briefly?
sure. They're both brand clarity sessions. So we get to work for 60 minutes. Basically, you have a detailed intake form that basically, I always say, what's your story? And don't leave anything out. And let me know exactly kind of where you've been in career, the direction that you want to go, the things that you're passionate about, those things. And also maybe some bottlenecks where you're not exactly clear on which direction you should go. I then take that information. We have a 60-minute session where I'm able to kind of pour into you over to the 60 minutes to identify exactly how do we clarify what that next step is? What is that next action step to get you moving closer to that goal that you want to land in? And after our discussion, we go through, I do whether it is an audit. If you have something that's established, you might already have a portfolio or you started something, we can certainly do that. Or it can just be career positioning for personal brand development, depending on what it is that you want to achieve. We'll get through that in the 60 minutes, and then it is followed up with a one-page breakdown of all of the key takeaways that we've discussed and exactly what those next steps you should be taking in order to move you closer toward the goal that you would like to achieve. And I've offered up two of those. So they're independent one-to-one sessions. And those are what we're giving away to help you be able to clarify and articulate exactly who you are, what you do, why you do it, and who you want to be working with.
Yes, and we are so excited. So our first winner is going to be Michelle Varghese. Michelle, you are our first winner. So if you could just send in the chat your email for Olivia to be able to connect with you, that would be great. And then same for our second winner, who is Shermanta Grant. Shermanta, you are our second winner. So if you could also please put your email in the chat for Olivia to be able to connect with you, that would be great. Let me make
Congratulations.
sure Shermanta's still here. Is she? I thought she
Left.
was. Uh-oh, she must have left. Well, in that case, I will randomly select another winner. Our second winner will instead be... Dun 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 dun. Irma Taylor. Irma, you will be our second winner. Irma, if you could, to claim your prize, if you could just drop your email in the chat for Olivia.
Congratulations, congratulations. I'm also going to put my direct, just our group, our, we call it business email in case, if that's okay. If you want to,
Of course.
reach out or have questions, you can always reach us there as
That,
well.
that's
There's Irma.
actually... Oh, yay, there we go. That's actually a great segue to the other housekeeping that I always love to do at the end of our events, which is just to remind folks this is a great opportunity to drop your LinkedIn or other places you like to connect in the chat and see if you can get a few more connections from other folks who are attending today. I also want to highlight that we weren't able to get to the workshop and some of the questions, and so Ebony will be in the spotlight on editors community on the EFA site to answer any questions you may have and just further the discussion there. I'm sure other folks who have joined this session and other ones and want to join future sessions would love to chat with you. So please make sure to check that out and to share your LinkedIn. Ebony, did you want to have any other closing remarks?
Well, if you see me on LinkedIn, say hello, feel free to connect. I would love to see you all inside the community at the EFA. There is a nice little code if you want a discount to join. Please join. We would love to have you. And I look forward to providing you all with the resources, to engaging with you directly. And I think we'll have a lot of fun. And there's also another event in June.
Yes, please be on the lookout for our June event. We're very excited for that one. Ebony, do you have any like sneak peeks at that or anything? Do you...
Yes, but I'm not sharing them. However, just know, just know that this is a year-long series every other month. So the next one will be in June, and then in August, and then October, and then you're not going to want to miss the December one. Um, so yeah, I'm really excited to bring this to you. I'm really excited to do this with you, and I would love to keep the conversation going. So,
Yes. Thank you so much, Ebony. And thank you
of
so much,
course.
OMG and Lori. We really appreciate you guys coming to speak for us.
Thank you so much for your expertise. I learned 100,000 things, and I'm sure everyone else did too.
I'm really grateful for the opportunity, and I thank everyone for participating. And please, by all means, reach out, connect. Happy to answer questions after the fact as well.
Yes, I just dropped my contact in. This was great. One of the best things about doing something like this is that I had to rethink everything, reimagine everything. I had to reflect on, we've been meeting about 6 weeks, little chats between the three of us, and I'm I've learned a lot more about myself, and I recommitted to some things that I forgot that I wanted. The conversation really matters and makes a difference. So thank you, Ebony. Thank you, Olivia. Thank you to everyone who attended today. I look forward to chatting with you and engaging with you both at the EFA and more directly, perhaps. But yeah, I feel
And thank
very
you to the EFA for
fulfilled.
hosting, for allowing us to have this space, for allowing us to engage with each other. And please join. I'm asking nicely. Please join.
Continue to join. You have with 3 minutes. I don't want to take all 3 minutes. Can I just say something very, very quickly?
Yes,
Please,
go
please,
ahead.
whatever you do, remember to be intentional. Remember to be strategic. Think about exactly who it is that you really want to be working with and what you really want to be doing. That is the foundation for the direction that you want to go in, period. And we had something earlier about being able to balance and all of that stuff, or what have you. Honestly, I'm going to tell very, very short, 30-second. When I was at the very beginning and I wanted to do freelance, what I would do is I would go to websites and I would scrub to find websites that really needed editing badly. And I would take them and I would actually edit them. And then I would contact the organization and just say, hey, so and so, just wanted to let you know, here's what I was able to find on your website. I'm telling you, the amount of jobs, somebody asked earlier about how do you balance all of those things. The amount of jobs and opportunity that I had just simply by taking that action to demonstrate that I can do this. And this is the type of organization that I want to work with, opened up so many doors. So trust yourself, be intentional, be strategic in how you put these things forward, and you are going to go in the right direction. I promise you. You will absolutely go in the right direction.
That is a wonderful note to end on.
Yes, thank you.
Absolutely. I just want to repeat the thanks again, and also just remind folks, since I saw it pop up in the chat, a recording of today will be available in the Spotlight on Editors of Color events community, and you can access that by going to the EFA site. If you have any questions or you're having issues with that, please feel free to reach out to me at my email that I'm sharing right now in the chat. But otherwise, you can view that there, and we all look forward to seeing you again in June.
Great.
Thanks, everybody.
Thanks,
Thank
everyone.
you.
Have a great one.